In progress.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 17, Letting Go of Control. So if it's your first time here, hello. If you've been here before, hello, we welcome you back. Yeah, this is parenting, conscious conversations in parenting with myself, Angie, Natalie, and Julie. And yeah, we're excited to talk about this because letting go of control, I know this is something this is a conversation I think I have with every mom in my life that I know. We have these conversations about control and knowing we need to let go of control and not knowing how to do it and still trying to control even though we're consciously trying to make different choices and we still find ourselves in control often. And so I think it's a really great topic to dive into. And we have talked about this before, and I think we'll keep talking about this, for a while. So yeah, if we haven't met, I'm Angie. I'm the creator of Journey to Soul. I'm a intuitive spiritual mentor. And really, I just love bringing women together. This is my life's work, my life's passion is bringing women together so that we can share, so that we can rise, learn together, heal together. We rise together, right? And we activate each other. We get to see reflections of the best parts of us, and we get to see reflections of where we might need more healing and we might need to look, and we can't do that alone. We have to do it together. And so that's what I love about bringing people together and having these conversations. And I know as a parent, I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I want to unpack this stuff with people, with other parents. I want to talk about this stuff. So here I am talking about it. We lost Julie, so I'm sure she'll find her way back. But Natalie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. I am an intuitive writer and just about ready to publish my new book, 21 Days to the New Earth. And actually, a lot of the content in that book we share in these conversations, a lot of the tools and techniques. So I'm really excited to be sharing that with the world soon. But yeah, this conversation, letting go of control. I'm a mom myself and a wife, and just this human experience, there's such a belief that we need to control our environment. And part of conscious awakening, part of our expansion into our higher selves is recognizing all these different lessons, right? And that's what I love sharing with people through these conversations and through my writings. So I'm really excited about this conversation because I find it's a big, like, control is like this belief that's rampant in the human unconscious.
Yeah, it is. We are, well, man, that we're taught that we can control, like as if we can control. We can't control the natural flow of life. Like we don't control that, you know?
No, we can fool ourselves.
Yeah.
That we can control, right? But I think we should, and maybe that's what this conversation will lead into, the illusion of control and what is actually going on instead, right? Um, so I've had a lot of experiences with this, guys. Um, and again, this belief of, especially as parents, that we need to control our kids, that we need to keep them on a short leash. Um, and granted, at the beginning, when they're babies and they're toddlers and they're really young, yes, you have to have like really strict boundaries, like, touch the stove, things like that, right? Don't use like the sharp scissors. But as they get older, we have to adjust our boundaries, and we also have to give them space, because there's, on the one side there's control, right, and on the other side there's offering the other person space, like being present with them, and because in that space they can really grow and thrive,
and have experiences. That's what we came here for, right? To have experiences, and we need to let them have their experiences, right?
Yeah.
Julie, you've joined us, but I think you're frozen. I'm not sure. I haven't seen you move since you got in. I don't know if she can hear us. Oh, she's disappeared again.
So what if like what comes to your mind for your awareness, Angie, when you think of control in a parenting role, right?
So what comes to my mind is the awareness and the concept that I've come to believe, and it's become my truth, is that, we chose to be here. I believe my children chose to be here, and chose me as their mother, Kyle as their father. You know what I mean? They chose us because we would be able to support their experiences. I believe that. And I believe, like, whatever experiences what that my children as a soul wanted to have, chose us because we would be able to nurture that. And so, because I believe that, because that's my truth, um, what I think of when I think about controlling is like, I think it's ridiculous that I would think I could control that. Like, I didn't make that decision. I had nothing, I mean, I had nothing to do with it really, like the actual decision. I just agreed to play a role in it, right? And it's a supportive role. Like, I'm a supporter, you know? And so
Mm,
that's kind of how I see it. I see, and because I've seen that, I believe that that shift is what has allowed me to stay a little more in my own lane and to stop expressing out this urge to control my children. That makes sense. That's what comes to my mind when we talk about this.
yeah. Something that's been coming up in my experience um, in the last few months is trying. So how I was behaving was I was trying to control other people's relationships amongst themselves. So the relationship between my husband and my son, between my husband and my daughter, between my daughter and my son, right? Trying to control, like again, trying to monitor, being the ref. Um, but that doesn't work. That's like, metaphorically shooting yourself in the foot because again, on the flip side of control is space. You have to give people space. And that's been my big lesson this year is giving people space so that they can figure out their own relationship. And I find, and maybe it's because I have more than one child, uh, which did, bringing that second child certainly did change the dynamic in our family. But I find that's like a lesson that keeps coming up, right? That I can't control other people's relationship with other people. I can only control my relationship with that specific person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, I definitely find myself in that too. Like trying to ref. I love like you're trying to ref the two, right? So because we have two children, you're trying to ref the relationship between the two of them. And I recently got like, the guidance, the internal guidance, above guidance of silence, like just silence, right? And so I've been practicing it a lot with the children, like when they're getting into whatever they're getting into, I notice the urge because I'm silent. Just be silent, Angie, and I notice the urge, the urge to like say something or manage it, or one person's doing it wrong. The way they're communicating is wrong, right? The other one, I have a better way for you to communicate. You step in and create more discord, more drama. My father-in-law. My father-in-law is just being funny. Um, anyway, like yeah, you want to manage it. And because of this guidance of silence, I've been really, really conscious of just being silent. And then, and because I'm very conscious of silence, I'm noticing the urge. I like it's coming into my awareness, the urge that I have to say something. And then I'm getting curious, like, oh, interesting. And also the second piece of being silent and that I'm noticing is that if I just be silent, I'll notice like they'll keep trying to engage me. And you and I have talked about this many times, right? The pain body and, keep trying to engage me, right? And I just don't answer. And I notice it dissolves. It just dissolves. Whatever the conflict was that they were having just dissolves. It goes nowhere.
Yeah, it's like magic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you spoke about silence, to me, silence equals self-control, right? So when you're noticing that you're trying to control external events, other people, situations, relationships, when you're trying to control the external, is that your higher self telling you in a hilarious, ironic way that you need to perhaps focus more on your self control? And silence is self control, right? So
Ah,
can we be silent, guys? Be silent within that urge to like, no, don't talk to him this way or don't do it this way, like just zip it,
just say nothing.
be silent, and that equals self-control. Because
I
you can't
love
control
that.
other people, but you can
But
control
what you
how you
can control is you.
perceive. The only thing you can control is what you do.
Yes. What you choose. I love that you've made that connection for me. Silence is self control. And that's what it is, like self control, right? Which is discipline. It's having, it's consciousness. Oh, I don't know who's calling me right now. Oh my goodness. Can I get back here? Okay. Huh. That's just given me a lot to think about. It's been fascinating to
Ah,
do it, to engage in this self-control. And it is a self-control. But the more and more I do it, the more and more amazed I am at what transpires, you know?
yeah.
And that fine, that's what it is for me. For me, in my experience right now around control is the noticing. Hi, Julie, welcome back. It's
Hello.
you were frozen right off the bat there.
I got kicked right out. It was so hard to get back in.
Oh man. Well, I'm glad you made your way back. Um yeah, in my experience with control, that's what it's been. It's been noticing, it's that silence has allowed me to notice the urge to control. And I guess where I'm at here with that is I'm starting to get curious about, oh, interesting, what's that urge about? That's where it's
Yeah,
taking
why
me.
is there an urge to control? Right?
Yes. What is that? Exactly.
Mm.
And it's not a judgment. You want to be careful you're not judging yourself for that desire to control. Sometimes we're labeled, what are the names? We're control freaks, right? Women are known as control freaks, right? And this is perpetuated. This is the programming, guys, right? And so we perpetuate our own programming, like about us, about we perpetuate it. And so like, noticing the invitation is to start to notice and get curious about it. Why do you want to control? Because that urge to control didn't come from nowhere. you know, it's been programmed. And so can you get curious about, oh, I do want to, and not make it mean something bad about you that you want to control. Just, oh, I see that I want to control this situation right now. I want to control this relationship that I'm witnessing between my husband and, you know, my child. What is that about? Can we take it internal? Can we take it, you know, one of my mentors, he talks about experience. Can we take it inward? Can we create an experience for ourselves of what,
Oh, I
to
love
find out
that.
what that is on the inside? Yeah,
Experience. I love it.
experience.
That's gonna stick in my mind.
I was just
What you're
listening to
speaking,
him recently.
oh yeah. What you're speaking about, I've reflected on this many times, the need to control in my life, in my home, you know, have things done a certain way or put a certain way. And, you know, funny, it always seems to come back to, for me, a feeling that I am not in control within, right? Like something's going on with me that I don't feel quite in control of. So I feel as if I can start controlling everything outside of me, it's going to make it better. But as we know, that's not the way it works. You know, we need to go within and find what we need within. It's not about controlling our external environment. And that happens, you know, it's happened over and over as a mother, where suddenly I feel like I am micromanaging everything and everyone, and nobody likes it. I don't like it. They don't like it. You know, it gets very overwhelming and frustrating. And it's funny, a lot of the time for me, I realize what I really need to do in that moment, if I can be conscious in that moment, is to just step away, walk away, go take some time with myself, you know, to try and figure out what's going on, go take care of myself, like the self-care we were just talking about in our last video. Because in that moment, trying to micromanage everything is definitely not helping anybody, you know, myself or them. Yeah, so I've definitely reflected on this many times. It comes up over and over.
We talk about it a lot. You know, I was saying in the beginning too, like we talk about this in this space a lot too. It comes into all our conversations, doesn't it? Like control. There it is again. There it is again.
Right. And another aspect of it that's been coming up for me is, as a parent, there are times when we need to be in control. You know, and when our children are younger, we're really in control of everything, all of their needs, you know? So I find it interesting and challenging at times as they're growing and gaining more independence. It's always the question of, where do I need to step back and let them be their own independent human being? And where do I need to step in again and be that parent, that loving, protective parent, you know? Angie, we talked about this, I think, when the topic of this video came up way back when, and it was about, oh gosh, it just slipped my mind. But as a parent, keeping you safe and healthy, right? So always saying that to my children, it's my job
to keep
as
you
a
safe and
parent
healthy.
to keep you safe and healthy. And then, you know, as we were discussing it,
We had like
came up, yeah, like a big aha moment, like, is that really my job? Or is my job
why
to
isn't
teach
love in
you?
there? Why isn't love in there? That
Exactly.
was what made us like,
Yeah,
why are we not saying my job is to love you
to love you
unconditionally?
Yeah, exactly. And
That was the
and it
big
kind
like,
of came to, you know, my job is to love you. And what we discussed we wanted was to help them become mindful in their own life so they can make their own independent decisions, and we are there to love them and care for them
as they experience it.
So I did, after our conversation, go and have that conversation with my children, because I've always said to them, that's kind of like you know, when we grew up, it was like, because I'm the parent, and how frustrating was that, right? So
Because I
I
said
turned,
so.
Because
pardon?
I said so. Yeah,
Because I
because I
said so.
said so.
Exactly. Just because I said so. So it's almost like, for me to be able to get away with that with my children, I just reframed it to, I'm here to keep you healthy and safe. So it is different in some ways, like, they're, you know, I'm giving them a reason. I want you to be healthy and I want you to be safe, but I almost feel like I could bring that up at any time, like, because I said so. It was almost a because I said so, right? But it's because I'm keeping you healthy and safe. But really, I want to be here to love you. I want to be here to nurture you. You know, I want to be a safe
I want to
place
be
for
here to
you.
support.
I want to be here to love you infinitely and unconditionally, right? Not just keep you healthy and safe. And as my children are turning into teenagers and becoming older, that keeping you healthy and safe, I realize, is no longer my responsibility, because they're at the age that they are making the choices. I'm not with them 24/7 like I used to be. And it's time for them to take on that responsibility themselves. So, but there is still a point where it's my job to keep them healthy and safe. So it's where I'm trying to figure out, where am I being controlling and trying to control their independence and individuality, and where am I being a parent, right? So we've started to have these conversations, the boys and I, that, you know what, it is your job now to keep you healthy and safe, because I cannot control your thoughts and your actions. That's not what I'm here to
My
do, but I'm
place.
here to teach you by example. And hopefully all of the choices I made previously, wanting to keep you healthy and safe, you've learned from a lot of them, right?
Mhm.
And again, we're not perfect and we're going to make mistakes, and you know, we all do all the time. So reminding them of that too. So it's really an interesting time of releasing that control and putting it into their hands, but still being a parent and still taking over that control at times.
Right.
That's
I
really
re-
interesting, everything that you brought up, Julie, because it mirrors a conversation I had with my mentor this afternoon. So I just,
Oh.
the universe is so funny sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, um, so part of that, you know, kids getting older, and again, becoming more independent, because that's part of the human expansion, right? So yeah, there's like the soul expansion, but there's also the human expansion. So when we're struggling with releasing control, perhaps can we reframe it in a way, am I, have I been offering tools to my children? Because the whole point is to, or the whole point of parenting should be to love and support our kids as they're exploring their own conscious
Mhm.
expansion, right? So are you providing them with the tools that will really nurture that? So a big one is, uh, you know, like journaling is very powerful, or even art, right? Like any kind of art, like even Legos, like building Legos, or of any kind of creative creation. Maybe music, like maybe they write music, or maybe they play an instrument or something. Being out in nature,
Mhm.
which I know you do a lot of with your family, is really important. Like those are like really the really biggest important tools to connect, that enable us to really connect with our inner being. So have you been offering those tools? And ask yourself this, guys, have you been offering those tools to your children? And if so, great. And if not, that's also okay, because again, like how can you start,
Yeah.
right? Um, and because, you know, you gotta cut that, what's the thing, like, not the
Cut the
purse
apron
strings, but
strings,
something else.
or
Yeah, the apron strings. Yeah, because they are growing. They are becoming older. They're becoming their own person. And they're going to have times where, you know, they're going to be unconscious and they're going to be struggling with this and that, you know, and that's okay. but when you're offering them these tools, it's gonna minimize those negative effects, or kind of that mind, whatever, like the busy mind effect, because you taught them the tools to get back to their inner self. So maybe, they had a really shitty weekend, so then they spent Monday they didn't go to school and they just laid on the grass all day, and then they feel a lot better, right? So all these different tools that we're teaching them, this is how, because that's really our role. Our role is
Mhm.
not to control. Our role is not to control their relationships, control their emotions. Our role is to be like, here's some tools that I apply. And sometimes just teaching them is just doing it yourself, right? But you also like bringing it to them too, in however, whatever way that works. Like maybe they're not big on writing, so don't like force it down their throat, but maybe they're into woodworking or something, or painting, like, or spray painting, right? Like, I don't know, whatever it is, but encourage that and teach them that
Yes.
that is a tool for them to really like kind of scrub out those busy thoughts in their head and connect with like their true self, right?
Oh, I just love everything you're saying. It's so true. Teaching them how to output, because we're in such an information age of constantly getting all this input, taking that time to get our thoughts and our feelings, emotions out and just releasing is so valuable. And like you said, it could be writing, it could be art, it could be Lego. And I must say, if my son heard you say Legos, he would have to correct you. It is Lego, not Legos. He's a big Lego fan.
True, because it's
Plural.
Brand.
like Julie, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
gonna be
always
aware of that
correcting
from
us.
now on.
I could hear him too. I could hear him
You
saying
too?
it. Yeah, I feel like I could hear him. That's so
I feel
funny.
like he probably felt it in his being downstairs.
Someone put it up.
But and also I love how you're saying that we are the example, right? So, and also not just being the example, but then bringing them the opportunity to explore it for themselves as well, right? So we may be writing, we may be doing art, and so on and so forth, but invite them in to do that with us. So a perfect example of
So they
this
can
is,
try it.
yeah, exactly. I just had this example this past week because my boys were having trouble with each other, and they started talking about, he hits me and he calls me names and it hurts me. And, the way they were expressing it was very you, and very insulting or shaming. So it brought me back to my own experiences of learning how to communicate in the relationship with Steve in a loving and respectful way. So what I got them to do, because I want them to both be able to express their feelings, but in a respectful way to one another, was to write down when I feel statements. So you're not pointing the finger or blaming, but you are letting the other person know, when you are doing this, this is how it's making me feel. And it worked very, very well. Well, my oldest son, his writing was a little bit, it wasn't so when I feel, so he had to do it over again. But Grayson, he had a whole bunch of points when I feel. And, it was challenging for me, like all feelings and emotions were just coming up for me going through this and sitting through this, but I knew how important it was. So I got them to both go to their rooms, write it out, and then each of them come to me individually before we got together, so it didn't get back heated and ramped up, and express themselves to me. And then later on, we sat together and they could express themselves as me kind of a moderator and reminding them how to speak respectfully. And they said after I left, they spoke about it even more. And their communication has been much better since. Today, again, there was another challenge with them outside. So again, I reminded them of the when I feel, and got them to both come together and let each other know. And it's really making huge changes, just like it did in my relationship when I learned it as well. So inviting them in to use these tools is really helpful too, because even if they see us doing it, they may not know right away how to replicate it.
Mhm.
So
I think on that too, it's important for us as parents then to also look at, are we modeling it? Because we can't teach our children something we're not modeling in our own relationships, specific to relationships, because you were talking about that example. And this is an area where we want to control often, right? Their relationship. And
Yeah.
so if it's bothering you, if a relationship is bothering you in your household or in your surroundings at work, wherever you are, right, in school, can you look at, are you modeling a healthier version of that then in your own experience? This is another way we can go inward, right? And look at that.
Absolutely. And something I wanted to say too, like how this all ties back into control is, previously, before teaching them these tools or giving them the opportunity to use these tools, I may just want to do all the speaking for them and, make them apologize and whatever, but they haven't really learned anything from that experience, So that's what we were doing previously, which was not working. So I was like, okay, what tools do we have? What can we use here so that I'm not trying to control their relationship and their dynamic? They need to learn these tools themselves. It's in their control ultimately, because it's a false sense of control to think that I can control their relationship with one another, right?
Yeah. And it only disempowers them when we step in
Exactly.
and we do that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's disempowering. And then we just get more frustrated. And so we create this big cycle that's no good for
Absolutely.
anyone.
And these skills are transferable to all relationships, right?
Yep.
So a lot of this was coming up, having to do with school and so on and so forth. And, all the relationships at school as well, it's the same dynamic. If we can come to someone, a lot of the time we believe that people know that we're upset about something or what they did upset us. And without being able to verbalize that to them in a respectful way, it's going to be very challenging. And that's what I see between my children, and then between schoolmates, or they don't have a lot of problems at school, but sometimes they'll come to me and say, this bothered me. And I said, well, did you let them know? So being able to practice this at home will help them transfer these skills. And again, make me not feel like I need to control their relationships. And then they're in control, they're in the driver's seat, and they have these tools. And it's absolutely amazing to see. It was really cool to see how they started communicating differently quite quickly. And of course, like I said, it reverted back quickly today, but it was just a reminder, like these new things that we implement into our lives.
We need reminders.
We need reminders, exactly. And
So
we need repetition. Exactly.
Yeah, and we don't want to be mad about it that they don't, that's one way I have to catch myself sometimes. It's like treating our children like they're adults and they know, like, because we told them one time and they applied it one time. Yeah. That's a ridiculous expectation to have of them when we can't. Julie, I know you talk about this a lot. When we can't do that.
Yeah, I know, having these expectations of our children to have, perfect control of their emotions. Yeah, to do it better than us. It always blows my mind when I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, right.
I'm like, oops. Why do I expect them to be this perfect being? I can't even do that.
I can't do that.
So again, it's time to turn.
I need reminders.
Yeah.
I need reminders, and I appreciate the reminders. So why can't they, I don't have to nag at my children. I don't have to, I don't have to just harp on them. Maybe I can change the energy of how I approach them. Just remind them, remember this tool, I think it's so valuable. They have the experience. Like your boys have now had this experience of being empowered and changing the outcome of this interaction
Mhm.
because they've applied a tool that you taught them.
It was very
Cultivate
interesting
wisdom.
to see. It was very interesting to see how it de-escalated so quickly, as opposed to continuing to escalate and ramp up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've definitely had that thought many times. How am I expecting them to behave better than myself as an adult who's been learning this forever? You know, and we do put that on our children
You
often,
do.
I think, but it's again. And something I've been remembering with my boys when it comes to that is to almost speak to them as if they were toddlers again, not in a condescending, like you're a little baby kind of thing, but remember how loving and gentle I was with the reminders. Not snippy, not snarky, not you should know this already. Because again, I don't even necessarily know this all the time. So, and it gives a
Yeah.
completely different dynamic and feedback from them as well.
Being aware of our current vibration when we're having these conversations, right? So maybe if you're feeling triggered or a little shitty because of the arguing, maybe keep it a lot shorter, right? Because hey, sometimes we can't be present 24/7, man. Like even Buddha can do that. Okay, we're still in human bodies, so be gentle with yourself and recognize within yourself, like, all right, I am like totally not in the mood maybe for this. I'm gonna keep it super short, or maybe I'm just gonna go outside and ground, give myself some space, then come back when I'm like feeling a little bit better. Then you can do those gentle reminders, right? Because you're in a better space. Because otherwise, you're just gonna like be barfing out low vibes like back and forth, right?
Absolutely. And then it'll just escalate more and more. And that I use this advice all the time, and I separate, and I ask them to separate. Like we'll come back in a little bit and discuss it, because right now it's too energetically charged. Nothing, excuse me, nothing is going to come at good at this moment. So when I got them to go to their rooms to do their separate writing, I feel, I came in my room to just, decompress and calm down. Like I said, I was feeling a lot of emotions at that time and frustration. And I knew that was not beneficial. And we probably spent a good hour or hour and a half on this. And we were just kind of going to our rooms, and then, one would come together and I'd start to feel it again. I'd be like, okay, go back to your room. And then I'd talk to the other one. And so it took a long period of time, because I was trying to keep it decompressed, and I was trying to stay in a good energetic space and a good mental space. And sometimes we absolutely need that separation, because I feel if I didn't do that, I would have just wanted to take control of it all and just be like, you in your room, stop fighting, whatever I would say. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd say it
yeah,
angrily and frustrated and snippy.
yeah.
I don't know what's happening with my thing here, but it's I feel like
Oh,
I'm moving all over the place. I set this up like so fast and quickly to try to get back here. It's really weird right now. But anyway.
So yeah, this conversation of control, like, there's just so many layers. And even as I'm hearing you guys talk, I'm like, and I'm questioning, I'm curious, like with control, when it comes to control, I'm constantly still reconciling it all. And so it's really interesting because it's like I struggle. I don't know. I don't even know how to verbalize this, how to express it. I struggle sometimes because I feel sometimes I even feel, and I'm not saying I'm right by any means because I'm reconciling it. I have no idea. But it's like the examples that you just gave, Julie, like you give the one example, you could do it in frustration and try to control the whole thing and just control like the whole interaction to stop. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's that. But then I'm also like what you're talking about, even though it was a beautiful outcome, a beautiful example, it feels like control to me still.
Mm.
And so I struggle, like it still feels like trying to control it. And I don't know why I don't know what that is. I'm just curious about it because I'm noticing it in me, of what that is. And so I appreciate that we talk about these things about control because but sometimes I wonder with myself when I look at it that way, what is that? I get curious about why I look at it that way because then it stops me from sometimes doing something like that and having that
Mm.
experience or giving my children that experience. Does that make sense? And so why am I resistant to that? Why does it feel like control to me? These are just some of the questions coming up in my mind. Why does it still feel like control to me?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't have the answers for that right now, but I felt like I needed to share that
Yeah,
because at the same time, there's also the part of me that's like, that's so beautiful.
Right,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
yeah. And I
Because I guess
think I
no, go ahead, Natalie.
okay, I can agree with Angie because one of the struggles I've had in the past couple of years of really expanding my conscious awareness is wanting to stop all the, programming, the subconscious programming, the control, the way I parent. But then we still have to remember that there's boundaries, right? So there's a difference between like control and having set boundaries for your well-being and other people's well-being. So maybe that I don't know if that's what it
Mm.
is, Angie, but I find too, like I love the example that you did, Julie, that you shared with us. Um, but there's like this belief still of like, but maybe that won't fly with like my kids, right? Because of
Yeah.
this and that. And there's like,
A
again, the
story.
mind was like, yeah, the story, right? So this is so fascinating. And this is why we have these conversations, guys,
It's totally
because
why.
it brings up stuff that I may not have been aware of until Julie shared that story. And Angie was honest and she's like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I agree with
Still
that,
feels
right?
controlling.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's no judgment to Julie. It's no judgment. Like I have no judgment about it. It's just, but it's like, it's interesting that I feel that way. To me, it's like,
Right.
oh, what is that? And something
Right.
that came in earlier, it's funny because you said you had a conversation today that mirrored what Julie was saying, right, Natalie? Also tuned into a conversation that mirrored what you were talking about.
Oh,
And it was like it's so funny that we had this conversation today. And what I wrote down in here was something about, you know, when we did this with the episode of lying in episode 15, and the word lying itself holds like all these energies, right, and holds all these attachments, and the word control holds a lot of attachments too. And so I
mhm.
wrote down like because as you guys were talking, I don't know what it was specific, but I was like, is it control, like, or do we think we need to control something? How do we have a distortion here around
Mm.
control? And really what it is I'm just responsible. Like I brought you into this world, we have this agreement and maybe I'm just responsible to help you transition into this world. And so there's this distortion of I need to control things for your experience here. Do you know what I mean? So I ended up writing the words control versus responsibility, and it's something I'm curious about too. It's another thing I'm like, I wonder there's something there for me
Mm.
about reframing and looking at the word control and really deconstructing it a little.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's bringing up a lot for me too. I am
Mhm.
definitely gonna think about that and ponder that even more because, yeah, sometimes I think it is a responsibility. There are responsibilities and control. And are we programmed to believe that our responsibilities are trying to control things? Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
Gonna have to
because
think more about that.
in healing, it's that way. Trauma is that way too. We can't control that trauma happened. Trauma
Mhm.
happened, but we do take responsibility
Yeah.
for the clearing of that, the healing of that, the lesson of that. We take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But what
Okay.
happens to a lot of people when they experience trauma? They start trying to control. This is a big response to
Yes.
trauma.
Yeah. I mean, my response to trauma, sexual trauma as a child, was eating disorders, which is a need to control,
Controlling the
right?
food,
So that's where it started. Very interesting. And then it took some time before I started to feel responsibility for my well-being and my wellness, and realizing that no matter what happened outside of me, what happened, to me, the experience I had, I'm still responsible for caring for myself now.
yeah. Now I'm
And
responsible for the now.
right. So
I don't control the now.
it's just
Responsible.
coming to me now that, as I began to take responsibility, I started to release the control of the eating disorder. And, it changed through the years, like different eating disorders. So it's interesting. I'm going to ponder this a lot about how I started to take responsibility and started to lose the need to control in an unhealthy way, in a way that was harming myself.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
This is why we have these conversations, guys. You're literally watching it real time,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so much here for me to like contemplate.
I know. And there was something Natalie said, and I can't remember right now, that I wanted to, touch on. But it's not coming back to me. I'm like, it's in there somewhere. Where are you?
We'll
But it was-
Pop up
revisit
as the
this.
next topic, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
But it
we'll
was about
revisit
the
this.
control.
Yeah, I'm definitely
About
confident that.
this.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, about the situation with my children, and feeling that was, maybe a controlling in that situation. Oh, and it was the boundaries. It was the healthy boundaries that you were talking about. So something that came up with my children in these conversations was that I have expectations and boundaries in the house of how we will treat each other, which is why we were going through this process, as a way to respect those boundaries, those healthy boundaries, because I am not going to tolerate people being, calling each other names, being disrespectful, hitting each other. And is that control, or is that a healthy boundary? Right. And I think it's kind of both, right? I'm controlling the environment within my home by creating this healthy boundary, because you may go out there and experience this all out there, but I have always wanted my place to be a place of love and comfort for my children, no matter what's going on in the outside world. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both: controlling, healthy boundaries, all of it, giving tools to them to be able to use. I guess, yeah, it's interesting. It's controlling in a different way.
This is what I'm thinking the takeaway is, guys. Like control is a very layered concept.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there is no right answer. It's how does control show up in your experience? How does responsibility show up in your experience? How do boundaries show up in your experience?
So you're bringing me back to no harm to self, others, or our environment. So when we are trying to control something, when we feel the need to control, or are controlling something, or taking responsibility, setting a healthy boundary, everything for me in my life always comes back to no harm. So am I harming myself? Am I harming someone else? Or am I harming my environment? So maybe there is, a healthy form of control, right? And it's the frequency and the intention behind it that makes the difference of whether it's going to be filling us up or draining our energy. Right.
So many layers.
So many.
I guess my takeaway would be, in your, within your family, within your household, can you notice when you're when you are controlling, or when you feel that urge to control the outside environment, uh, and ask yourself, because the control and the responsibility is hard to define as humans, right? So when you're struggling to figure out, is this control, is this responsibility, maybe the other invitation from me is, can you ask your inner being, can you ask your higher self, am I trying to control, or is this a healthy boundary of trying to
Yeah.
Important
Maybe.
questions.
And it's holding an awareness that they kind of cross over all these things: control, responsibility, boundaries, right? Like what's what, and only you can answer it. So I love that you're guiding them in, because only you can answer it in your experience. But oh, what a this is a deep conversation. So much.
I know, there's so much.
Holy crap. So I just want to thank everyone. If you're listening to this, we would love to hear your own thoughts around this, your own insights, right? Share the video, like the video if you like it, subscribe so that you can tune in live with us on Tuesdays, because I'm sure when I hear this back, like more things are going to drop in. We'll be on
I'm
here.
excited for that.
So yeah, and share this video with other women. This is a conversation I have with almost every woman I know. At some point, there's this conversation about letting go of control. Yeah. So thank you, Julie. Thank you, Natalie. Gosh, I love having these. This is like so much to contemplate here, but I'm so grateful for you guys sharing your truths so fearlessly with us.
Thank you for creating this space. I absolutely adore it. And I adore both of you. This is always so wonderful and so filling and fulfilling. Fills my heart and fills my
up
soul.
The battery.
Yes, fills my battery back up. Absolutely. And I'm always so grateful for these conversations and for both of you being here and sharing your heart and soul and perspective. I just love it. And I look forward to hearing it back too and creating the next video with you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being present with us, guys. And yeah, make sure if this speaks to you, make sure to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. There's such great content that we all share because we're all experiencing this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are when you're listening to this. It's perfect timing. All right. We're signing off till next episode.